I'm looking for is I want to see all out panic. I want to see people say, oh my God, Bitcoin, is it going to like make it? Oh my, like then I'm going to be like, all right, now's the time to go in and buy. Yeah, just a couple days ago we were buying just small positions because ultimately my view is that you have a larger bear flag here on Bitcoin, so it's going to head lower. But like we said at the beginning, it's buy, support, sell, resistance. So we picked up right here Bitcoin small position in Bitcoin, Solana, and Avalanche. Last night I was lucky enough to wake up because my youngest daughter woke up and I saw Avalanche was up about 12%. I'm always a big fan of taking a little and putting it in your pocket because that's the way you kind of ensure that you're not kind of just leaving it all out to chance. And I'm glad I did that at this point because, we're basically back to break even on Solana and Bitcoin as it's come right back into this level. So right now, this is support here. If it breaks, you have another major support around 37,000, and I'll probably look to play those again as key levels of support. But again, small bounces at this point. I'm not getting greedy because I do worry about the larger macro pattern. And just for everyone to understand, there's something that's called a micro pattern, which is kind of the shorter term, very, very short term pattern, which would be something like this, where it's hitting support and you get a little bounce. And then you have the bigger, the macro pattern, which tells you to be careful to not hold on for too long. So in and out kind of right now for very small amounts, waiting for the bigger pattern to play out to the downside. It's all probabilities, right? So we're definitely not 100% right. I mean, I've been on a decent little streak that will end. I'll have plenty of losing calls in my career, but it's like, can you just get that average to 70, 80%? And then, you can easily be wrong a few times and it's fine, but it's the probabilities that it's all about. For the most part, as long as we stay within the white kind of the top line here, which is a perfect parallel to the lower point. And that's just the coolest thing about, charting is that you just find these things and you're like, wait a minute, you have millions of people buying and selling. How the heck does the chart stop at like an exact line and then bottom at an exact line? Very cool stuff. But that's what I'm really doing is just as long as we stay within here, I'll just play support and resistance. So we went short up here, right into that line. We kind of covered right here. I always cover a little early because you just don't want to miss it. And then we bought right down here. And it's just, if we go back up, I'll probably do a repeat and just do it again. If it gets above here, that's where my thesis of a bear flag would start to come into question, where if we broke out in this range, I would start to say, okay, now you don't have as clear cut a bear flag. Maybe it starts heading higher. Same thing on the downside. If it breaks here, then I need to pull the trigger and stop out of that position and just kind of, it's a very reactive situation where, if your support line breaks, you have to admit it. You just have to say, okay, at this point, it's probably going down more, exit that long and move on.
All right, what do you see short term? You see a chance of us moving back upward, or let me ask both of you this: are we going to hit 30 or 60 first?
I think we hit 30 first for sure. I wouldn't even be surprised if it's 20 first.
Let's go. Maybe that's what I like to hear. That's what I like to hear.
What I think it is that there's so many. Like everything when you're trading a chart, it's all psychological, right? You're trading human emotion. And so there's many things like volume will line up with these same levels. And it's just not something I look at because I keep it as simple as I can, because otherwise I get confused like an old guy. But for the most part, it's just like it aligns somehow. And it's actually amazing. It really is. And everyone that follows me in here, you guys know that, basically back in October, November, when it was 65, I did an interview and it was in Dubai at the blockchain summit. And I said we weren't breaking out. And I said, you got to have your watershed flush out moment. And I did say 20 back then. So I got to stick with it. Otherwise I'll be called out on it. So I'm going to stick with it. But to answer your question, Miguel, is that basically you have a scenario where you have to get a washout in crypto, right? I mean, I think we can all agree that there's a lot of junk in the system. There's so much kind of rotting crap out there. I mean, 18,000+ cryptos. You can't have them all survive. We need to have some sort of decline that really flushes it out. And I've mirrored, we've talked about how if you look at the Amazon chart from 2000, it's identical to what the formation on Bitcoin is over the last 6 to 12 months. Really about 12 months. And we know what happened with the .coms. And so I just have to connect the dots and I have to say, all right, listen, you know, the craziness of the NFT market, the craziness of cryptocurrencies with these ones that, you know, SHIB and Dogecoin and stuff that were made up as jokes having billion-dollar valuations. You have to flush that out. And then I'm a big fan that I think Bitcoin will eventually be 500, maybe a million, 500,000, maybe a million. But you got to have that flush out first. And this is the perfect opportunity because you have the Federal Reserve starting to hike interest rates aggressively to combat inflation. Bitcoin's never experienced this. I mean, let's be clear. Since 2009, it's been 2% or under inflation, according to the Fed. And therefore,
that's a lie.
Right. And now you're in a period where they're taking inflation more seriously than propping up the economy, at least for now. So if it's going to happen, I think it's going to be in the next year or so that we're going to come down there, and I'll be waiting to buy handed fist, you know, every both hands. Yeah. The only thing I can go by, and probably Paul will agree, is that you have to look at history and how history has worked out. So if I look back at previous cycles in Bitcoin, it takes about 12 to 18 months for it to fully bottom out before it starts to So, well, but keep in mind, we're already that was November. So So if you take the beginning of November, we're already past 6 months. So I mean, at most you have another year of this kind of downside move before it. And really, what'll happen is it'll go down and then it'll just kind of hop around at the bottom. And one of the things I look for, and this was a great indicator when we were up at 48,000 recently, is like everyone out there, and you guys probably see this on Twitter. It's like the bulls came out in force. And that always makes me more confident on the opposite side. It's the greatest contrarian indicator. So what I'm looking for is I want to see all out panic. I want to see people saying, oh my God, Bitcoin, is it going to like make it? Oh my, you know, like then I'm going to be like, all right, now's the time to go in and buy. Same thing with financial stocks. Think about in 2009, for those of you guys that were trading back then. I mean, these companies were like getting bailed out. It was the end of the world, the financial crisis. And if you bought Bank of America or Citigroup or JP Morgan, I mean, you've made like 300 times your money, basically. I mean, it's been incredible. So, but there was blood in the streets, as they say, and that's the time to jump in. But looking at Ethereum here, so basically there's just one level I'm watching on Ethereum, and it's this trend line here. As long as we stay above it, you can buy the support. It can potentially go higher. But ultimately, the one thing that concerns me is that if the Bitcoin chart does dump out, then it would be very hard, in my opinion, for Ethereum not to sell as well. And once this trend line breaks, that's where trouble starts. So, I mean, if you're looking for a level to trade against, use that line. If it gets below and stays below for a couple days, then I would be very, very nervous that you're going to start to see much, much more downside. So for me, if it does break, basically, you'll obviously have some support right in this range here. Eventually, this level would be the next big one, which is all the way back to kind of those lows from about a year ago at that point. But again, right now, I mean, just like with Bitcoin, it's above that major line. It's still hanging in there. It's holding. It's trying its hardest. Can it do it? The other thing just to kind of keep an eye on here is you technically could make a case for a head and shoulders. It certainly isn't the prettiest of pattern formations here, but you could make a case that you have this pattern here, which again is kind of a bearish pattern out there. So I think we should all be aware is that you're right. A lot of people are now calling for 20,000. And the one thing I've learned is that when everyone's calling for it, it either stops before it gets there, which means like 21 and then goes right back up and everyone misses the boat. Or if it does hit 20, it's going way lower. Watch out, because the market never lets everyone just buy that exact low. So on Ethereum, there's absolutely a bull case. And basically what you're going to want to do is, for me at least, is just look at the chart and just draw your trend lines in. So if we just basically draw a trend line down here, that would be my first kind of signal that there's potential light at the end of the tunnel. If we could get above this level, I think it does open the door maybe to start to move up. You'll probably get rejected at a few of these pivot points in here, but at least as long as it stays above that line, it would be a pullback that could likely go higher on the Ethereum chart. And then just on Bitcoin, we kind of talked about it earlier, but the bull case for me starts coming into play if you get above this kind of 50,000-ish area, and if it can hold, right? I've seen many situations where they get above a level real quick and then the institutions smack it right back down. You want to see it kind of hold there, consolidate, build that base, and then it could start to move higher. But that would be the bull case there, where then you start saying, okay, if it can hold above 50, maybe it can start making its way back to that 65 level and kind of cruising up. Short term over the next 1 month bearish. Okay. I think by the end of the year, it'll be significantly lower than here, at least 10-20% lower. So I mean, I think that's a great point, and I stress this is that, you know, like, I could be wrong, any of us could be wrong. So you never want to say, oh, Gareth's it says it's going to 20, so I will not buy a single Bitcoin until 20, because if it goes to 21 or 25 and then rips, you're going to be left behind. So what I like to say to people is, like, none of us know the lows. If you believe in it long term, like I do, and I truly do believe in Bitcoin and cryptos long term, then, like, basically divide up your capital that you want to invest, or dollar cost average. Like, even if it's like $200 per month on the first of every month, just be a robot and enter, because if it goes down, then you're dollar cost averaging and you'll have an awesome average. And if it starts to go up, at least you're participating in that on the upside. So this way you get involved, but you're not committing all your capital at one price point where they might be able to flush you out if they do flush Bitcoin down.